So, welcome to everyone. Welcome back to this channel. Welcome back to the Recover from HA support group. I'm here today for the last live for 2023 with my beautiful partner in crime, incredible friend, magical clinical psychotherapist, Jacqueline. I have so many things that I can say about this woman, and they're still not enough. But first of all, welcome, Jacqueline. How are you?
Oh, what an introduction. Thank you, Claudia.
He's my
I feel
spirit.
I feel just the same about you, and I am very well. I am feeling the buzz of this festive season, and just so keen to talk with this community about all that the silly season does bring into our lives and how we can manage that. How are you though?
I am very well, but having said that, I always tend to get to this time of the year and I feel my energy dipping. And I've noticed that this year I'm really looking forward to the Christmas period. And sometimes feeling that low in energy can also be difficult for women that are dealing with the disorder behaviors around food and training because their energy is already not there. And then they also have to face the challenges that comes with gym closings, meeting Uncle Bruce that always has something to say about the physicality of the people around him, or having the Christmas dinner or the Christmas Eve dinner, New Year's Eve, fitting in different dresses. So this can be a triggering, challenging, but also very exciting period for so many women. And that's definitely something that we're gonna unpack today, because the title of this live is how to cope during the holidays, from the place of engaging in a different routine and also being surrounded by a different variety of food and being called to participate to many social occasions. So, Jacqueline, where would you like to start? Because I noticed that you are already scribbling away. So I thought, oh, there is an idea that it's meant to come out. So how about that we start with that one?
You know me too well, Claudia. Um, you make me laugh with Uncle Bruce. There's always an Uncle Bruce, if not many. And in many ways, I think if there was one wish I could give to this community, it would be for crystal clear boundaries around this time period. And so much of what makes people often vulnerable, the same cohort of the personality profiles that tend to develop more obsessive exercise patterns and potential eating disorder patterns, also find it hard not to run around trying to please everyone this time of year and attend everything you're invited to. So you meet expectations, don't hurt anyone's feelings, bring a lot of energy when you are there so that you're also very engaged as a contributing member of that community. It puts additional pressure on, rather than maybe other personality styles also don't feel required to show up in the same way. So it's not just the energy that you're bringing into it, but what's being taken out of you as you participate.
I can relate to that on so many levels, because being a recovery perfectionist and a recovering people pleaser, which is something that I will have to work on for the rest of my life. As you mentioned, it's really very hard to say no and to set those firm boundaries. And lots of women enter this period thinking this is going to be a challenging time for me. And also something that I invite people to do is to actually write down, what do you think that is going to be challenging for you during this time? Because once that we actually write down our fear and our thoughts, they lose the power once they are on paper. So for example, instead of saying Christmas time is a challenging period, what is it about it that you find challenging? Because once that fear has come out, then you can tackle it and you can create a supportive environment to make sure that it doesn't trigger someone to the full extent. So what are some of the common fears that can come up during this time, Jacqueline? What do you normally see?
I do see a lot of people fearing judgment one way or the other, that they'll be judged for how they're eating or where they're eating is different. They'll be judged for weight gain or body changes if they've been working in recovery, or they'll be judged for not changing enough and showing up differently in their body, or if people may not even know what they're going through, they might be judged for not pursuing pregnancy yet or achieving pregnancy yet. They might be judged for the assumptions people make about what that means about their values. And so part of this running around to please people and manage their expectations and the impression management that goes on when we're seeing people we might not have seen since last Christmas, when we had to go through this all over again, then it brings in that anxiety too of, it's almost like an annual review of our behavior. That can coincide with a lot of there's a very strong narrative in our society this time of year and coming into New Year's of reviewing our goals and achievements. And that might be conversation that people bring up over Christmas lunches as well. Like, what's the year brought for you? What have you done this year? How's work been? I thought you guys were going to try for a child this year. If you decided to put that off, are you focusing on your career? The kind of comments that can come up when you may not even know people particularly well, but because they're family or because they're connected in a certain way, those Uncle Bruces can feel like they have permission to ask or permission to comment on your world, and feeling yourself getting armored for that as well, like really having to think through the stories that you're going to share and how you're going to handle certain questions that might come up is something I see a lot of my clients really in angst about over these periods of time. I love your suggestion of writing it down. And I just add to that too, if you are afraid of having your boundaries pushed in certain ways or certain comments that might come up in various situations, to have a few comebacks that you could lean on, that you've already rehearsed and you could have as a go-to. And that could be, depending on your personality, it's best if it's authentic to how you generally communicate. It could be a sassy comment back, or it could even just be something humorous or a deflection, or just bring up a different topic and really not give them much of an answer, but have something that you can do so you feel like you're not just going in like a lamb to the slaughter and wait for the question to come up before you even think about how that places you.
I love the idea of a rehearsal as well, because it gives someone a lot of confidence, knowing that they are prepared for some of the questions that they're going to receive. And the fear of judgment, that's something that we have spoken about on the HA community during the group calls for the past 3 weeks. It's the fear of judgment from people that we haven't seen for a long time, but also it's the fear of judging ourselves when we need to slip into a beautiful dress for the end of the year, that dress that used to fit us last year and all of a sudden is not fitting us any longer. Actually, there is a side questions that I would like to ask you. How can women take care of themselves when they get to a point where they need to wear that beautiful dress that they used every single year until to that point, and now they don't fit in it anymore? What can they do to really support themselves and the journey? What is something that you have used in your practice that can really help women to move through that obstacle?
There's absolutely grief. I've actually run workshops around clothing and clothing yourself in recovery, because it's such a pertinent experience that just seems to hit particularly hard for a lot of women. I think how we dress ourselves is innately in our identity. It's about, when I wore that dress last, I felt like this, I was this person, it represents this time in my life. And if it's not fitting anymore, that feels quite symbolic. It's like, well, who am I now? What does fit in my life? What fits who I'm becoming? On a practical level, depending on what's achievable for you, but I think resourcing yourself with clothes that feel as comfortable as possible while your body's in transition is such a gift. Like getting some, for a lot of people I work with find us getting a couple of dresses that are kind of flowy and comfortable, and they can vary their size within that as their body's finding its new right level, can create a lot of peace of mind. But emotionally, letting yourself feel the grief and recognizing there's a loss of what that self represented, of why, if it was an eating disorder self and a body that was as the result of disordered eating, over exercising, restriction, there was a reason she was in your life. There was a reason she had to take front and center stage for that chapter of your life. And her stepping aside is going to elicit pretty intense feelings. That's appropriate. So making space for that is important. In addition, reflecting on your values and your reasons why you entered into this space in the first place. Why did you reach out to Claudia? What came up in that first call where you decided, I want to do this? And weight gain and increasing my intake are things I'm not willing to negotiate on anymore, because I want what's on the other side of that so much more than what I currently have. Not fitting into that dress also represents that. It represents that you're achieving the goals that you originally set, and you're closer to those dreams manifesting in your life, and making room for both, like not dismissing the hard part of how that can feel, but not losing sight on your North Star of why you moved into this in the first place, I think is the most realistic and sustainable way of approaching how that feels.
And I love the combination between finding a new dress that fit your body, because dresses are meant to fit our body, not the other way around. And also combining that with the annual review. Where was I 12 months ago? Because sometimes we tend to put on a pedestal our linear version, our eating disorder version of ourselves, right? And so really think about, where was I 12 months ago? Why was I not happy? Why did I decide to make changes? What was I trying to achieve? And now I have this beautiful, diverse body. What does it say about me? What else is going on in my life right now that I could have not dreamt of 12 months ago? What is possible for me now? And can I start shaping a new identity, starting from the way that I dress? I don't know about you, Jacqueline, but I used to wear black for decades. Like, look at me now. Something like this would have not been possible, not even in the back of my mind, because I was trying to make myself smaller in every single possible way. And all of a sudden, with recovery, colors came to life.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something really small, but for some people can be that, using the makeup, using different colors, joining a different club, starting new hobbies, meeting new people, getting pregnant, having the opportunity to have a baby. Is there anything that particular that you would like to bring on about your personal experience as well, like the difference between when you were going through the recovery phase to now, and how your life is looking different?
You really lit me up with sharing that, and I've got a few ideas to add to that as well. Yes, I think it's often about part of what we're grieving and why recovery is so hard is that part of the reason why most eating disorders developed is that they were a protection mechanism in some way, in some form, and deciding to let them go, which one of the reasons eating disorders are quite different to other mental health experiences is that we often, because of the nutritional component, because of the medical component of this experience, we often initiate recovery earlier and maybe faster than it might look like in other spheres of mental health, because we have the luxury of time. If someone isn't deprived of nourishment, if they're not unable to get pregnant while they're suffering another mental health experience. In eating disorders, sometimes the clock is running faster. And so we have almost this intellectual readiness before we have an emotional readiness to move forward in that way. And so that self that we're letting go of, we haven't necessarily fully really grown out of her. And so I've likened it to sometimes feeling like, it's almost like you feel like you're in a relationship where you still love the person and you're not ready to break up, but someone else is making you break up, or circumstances are making you break up. And that hurts very differently to making that decision after you've grown apart, after you can kind of see it's really not going to work anymore. And it still hurts to finally let go, but you knew the writing was on the wall. You had kind of gotten to that place of readiness. And often with eating disorder recovery, the affair is interrupted. And then that continues to be a fantasy, which is what would probably happen, right? If we were in love with someone and we were withheld from them, they probably stay as a fantasy in our mind of like, well, that was the love of my life. I should have been with, if we had stayed together, it would have been perfect. And we often do that with our eating disorder because we choose recovery because we want health, we want children, we want to keep our jobs, we want to keep our partner, but we weren't fully there on being convinced that it wasn't going to work between us. And so that loss of identity is really in the yearning for that self. But what many of us notice in recovery, what was my experience, is that the self-expression available in my recovered self was much more spherical, that I felt such deeper self-acceptance. And I mean, that's so symbolic as well, that you found yourself wearing more colors and like literally your life took on color again. The palette of your life was activated again. And I can relate to that even in the way I would give myself permission to show up, that it was like there was allowed to be more than one version of me. I didn't just have to be one sort of carbon copy of myself that I was perfectionistically trying to reiterate in everywhere I went in my world. But I wondered whether it might be helpful for some in the community to, with experimenting in who you're becoming and who that new self is going to be, even popping on Pinterest or getting some magazines, finding something that's inspiring, looking for women who maybe are in a body that would be a more recovered body for you, and deciding what clothes you like the look of and what colors you like, and what jewelry you might explore, like makeup, hair, as you said. It gives you an opportunity to rehearse that self before you're fully ready to be her. And that's going to make it feel a lot safer for your nervous system, feel a lot safer for your subconscious than just kind of putting on something that feels a bit awkward and it's not really you, but it's the only thing that fit, and you're trying to grit your teeth and get through it. Is coming at it from a more celebratory perspective.
And I love this because that's something practical that people can take home and do for themselves. And that's something that I did as well back in the past. I had my visual board on the wall, thanks to Pinterest, and there were all these diverse women in diverse bodies, but they were dressed beautifully. And very similar bodies to mine, but they were really enhancing their new forms. And that gave me hope, because something that I tend to see in women that are going through their recovery grief is that they try to manifest and visualize the life that they want from a place of feeling really uncomfortable. So obviously our visualization can only match our current level of energy. So if you're in a state of, let's say, misery, then it's going to be really hard to visualize yourself and think, oh, I'm abundant, I'm beautiful with this new clothing, because the two things are not going to match. They're actually, they're not going to match. So getting into a place where you have a vision board, something to look at when you wake up in the morning before going to sleep at night, something that you can scroll through during the day, and having those reminders at different times during the day that your body is exactly how it's meant to be, that the way that you lost was not meant to be lost in the first place, and reminding yourself of all your attributes and all your skills and your character beside your look. So apart from your look, that's going to be very powerful, because if we spend 3 minutes each and every day telling ourselves how amazing we are, and then we go back to criticizing ourselves for the remaining 23 hours and 57 minutes, that's not going to really lead to recovery or lead to a place of peace and contentment. So I love the idea of that kind of vision boards, let's say. What else could women do, especially during this time when they're surrounded by all these triggers? Is there anything else that come to mind for you?
I do. I think journaling can be another really helpful, practical thing to do, writing down your fears, and then you could ask that future self, that self that's represented in the clothes you're looking at on your Pinterest board that's represented in your vision board, try to evoke that version of you to write back to what you've just spilled on the page, so that you're dialoguing. And what's actually happening is that most of us do have an ability to regulate ourselves and see things from another perspective, but we're just so habituated in that dominant way of thinking, we don't often have space to find that self. And you'll notice it because it might be that self that responds to a friend in need, or it's that self that teaches something to somebody else. But when it just comes to you and your own thoughts and the pace of the day, it's not available. And an activity like that can help bring that part back up to you, which could be called your wise self, or your like your internal mother, really. Like it's like your inner mom to yourself that is giving you guidance and giving you support. I think tactile things can be really helpful when you're stressed. And if it's something like a Christmas party, it might be a work Christmas party, and you can sort of pep talk yourself beforehand, but once you're in it, you're just activated and in the momentum of it, and sort of forget what your intention was to do with yourself in that time. Even wearing something intentionally, like a bracelet, or having a crystal in your pocket, or something you're going to feel against you. Reminders on your phone can work well for this as well. So it interrupts that momentum that you might go into. And when you feel that crystal clunk in your pocket as you sit down on the chair, or your phone buzzes with a reminder, or the bracelet knocks the table as you are in conversation with someone, it's a prompt of, oh, that's right, I was going to try and be really self-loving with myself on this occasion, or I was going to not ask a lot of myself in terms of contributing to conversation or being high energy, because I actually am going through a lot right now, and I'm allowed to just show up at 60% and conserve some energy for myself. Whatever it was that your intention was, it helps you actually anchor that into practice.
Yeah, and to add to that, sometimes even wearing a very small bracelet, an elastic band, and click the elastic band as much as needed underneath the table when a very triggering conversation come up, can take some of the pressure away, because you can start focusing on the elastic band instead of the conversation. And if the person is in a incredible place where they can go to one of the events with a partner, letting the partner or the friend or the relative knows about what's going to happen, what can trigger them, and squeezing their hand when they find themselves in a place of difficulty can also be something very useful to do. Then during the Christmas season, it's important to make sure to have times to really decompress. So times where there is nothing booked in, where the person can go for a walk or can go for a massage, or do the things that feel safe to them, doesn't matter what they are. But also something that it's available to all of us is to create alternative holiday traditions for the time being. So for example, if sitting with the legs under the table on the 24th and then again on the 25th and then again on the 26th is too much, then we can say yes to the 24th and the 26th, and then on the 25th, sorry to everyone, today I'm going to spend the day really relaxing with my family. We have created this new holiday tradition. No one is going to be welcome in our space because we are creating our own family. Or maybe you can also decide to go on holidays and escape all the festivities if it's possible. I'm really looking forward to do this in the future for different reasons. But there is nothing wrong in finding coping mechanism that can help us for the time being. And I know that this looks like a distraction and a way of not coping and not facing the challenges. But I think that life is already so challenging that if we can find shortcuts here and there, take them. What's your thought on it, Jacqueline? Would you agree, or do you think that it's
I couldn't agree more. I think the choice to keep those boundaries, and this is part of the new you that is becoming from the experience of an eating disorder, is being discerning with your energy and time and who you keep company with, and choosing your needs over the expectations or pleasing of other people. And so what that often does need to look like, particularly in this season where things are more intense in recovery, is saying no, doing less, not participating, so that you have the space and time to look after yourself and make it work for you.
Yeah, and we have talked about so many different things, and I really hope that the women that are listening or that will be listening in the future, that have some pen and paper with them. We should have said that in the very beginning, but I also would like to remind each and every one of you participating that joy and happiness and contentment are always available. They may not seem like the quickest solution, obviously, or the quickest options, because clearly when there is some state of stress that is perceived by the primitive body, joy is not the first thing that comes to mind. But we have the ability with our super clever brain to always tap into that. So creating a supportive environment, writing down the fears, using all the techniques that have been so beautifully described by Jacqueline, create new traditions, making sure that there is some buffer time in between festivities, all at your fingertips, and you're more than welcome to choose them. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we finish this video, Jacqueline?
I would just want to say that your number one responsibility now and always is looking after yourself. And if that was a mantra, maybe you could take into this season, that will not let you down. You won't make the wrong choice if that is the center of how you seek to go through this season. You are your responsibility.
We are our responsibility, the most beautiful responsibility that we got. So Jacqueline, end of the year, just before Christmas, it has been an amazing year of lives. We have shared so much of our clinical, personal, professional stories. If for all of you, if you want to go back and binge on us, you can definitely find all the YouTube videos on Nourished by Claudia on YouTube. There is a playlist which is called Mindset and Recovery, and all our videos are going to be listed there. So if you need them during the festivities, just make sure that you subscribe and you keep tuning in. And if you decide to work with Jacqueline or myself in the new year, just let us know. Both of us are gonna close the doors for a couple of weeks because we really need to recharge and bring some renewed energy into the new year. But feel free to obviously reach out to either one of us and make recovery your priority. Jacqueline, thank you once again for being here. It has been an immense pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our next one in 2024.
Me too, Claudia. Me too. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.